How are you doing? I hope you're doing good and you're keeping safe from coronavirus. I'm equally doing fine. I'm happy to meet you here again. And today's topic, we are dealing with underweight and poor appetite. And this is coming from the previous discussion we had on weight management. A lot of issues came about, a lot of concerns that how do we deal with underweight? How do we deal with poor appetite? And because I'm here to empower the community, I'm here to work together with you to improve our nutrition standards for healthy living. So I prepared a few guidelines for you so that you can deal with underweight and poor appetite. And so before we go straight away on how to handle poor appetite or how to solve the issue of underweight, we first of all need to know how can I tell I'm underweight. And there are different methods that have been put forward to help us estimate weight. And so we will look at a few of them. They are just based on an estimate. It may not give your weight exactly 100%, but it is an estimation that can help you understand where your weight lies. And so we have this formula called Nelson's formula. Nelson's formula, we can look at it for children and we can look at it for adults also. So children below 12 months, how can we be able to tell their weight? There is something called expected weight. In other words, the weight that your child needs to have at a given age. That is what we are calling expected weight. So if your child does not meet that weight, then you know your child is underweight. So children below 12 months, how do you get their expected weight? You take their age, which is in months, you add 9 on it and divide by 2. For instance, if your child is 7 months, you take 7 plus 9, which is 16, divide by 2, that is 8. So it means that your child who is 7 months is expected to have around 8 kgs. So if the child you took to the clinic and you got the weight is 7, it's 6, that is it's below 8, then you know your child is underweight. If your child is between 1 to 5 years, you take 2a plus 8. A here refers to the age. So for example, if your child is 2 years, you take 2 times 2, that is 4, plus 8, that is 12. So your child of 2 years, we are expecting to her or him to have around 12 kilograms. And then for children above 5 years, let's say your child is 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, you take 3A. I've told you A refers to age. So you take, for example, if a child is 8, you take 3 times 8, which is 24. So a child who is 8 years is supposed to have 24 kilograms. So this is the expected weight. So if you calculate using this formula and you find your child is below the expected weight, then this simply tells you that your child is underweight. And we are saying the weight determined by this formula is an estimate. Like I told you previously, it's not like an exact weight, but it is an estimate to tell you how your weight, the weight of your child is. Then we're saying that children below 5 years should be taken for MCH clinic, mother and child health clinic, for growth and monitoring. When you take your child to clinic, they weigh the weight, they take the weight, and you'll be able to know if your child is doing well or not. And now for adults, we have the common body mass index or BMI. This one was discovered by a scientist called Adolf. And how do we get your BMI? BMI simply refers to your body mass in relation to your age or your height. Your body weight in relation to your height. How is it? So you take your weight in kilograms, you divide by your height in meters squared. In other words, let's say for example your height is 1.5 meters and your weight is 60 kilograms. So you will do 60 over 1.5 squared. And then if you get a figure that is below 18.5 kilograms per meter squared, then it means that you are underweight. Another way for children how to determine their weight, and that's why I say that it is important for parents to take their children for clinic. Some parents, and this one I'm talking to mothers, most of them, and even men, you're supposed to support your women to take their children to clinic, remind them, escort them, accompany them, Give them the moral support they need. And a child is supposed to be taken for mother and child clinic until 5 years, until the child is 5 years. What happens to most parents is that when the child has finished the immunizations, they stop taking the child for clinic, which is very wrong. Even if your child has finished the immunization, they're supposed to go for the clinic until they are 5 years. That is where growth and monitoring takes place. The nurses will be able to monitor. The nutritionists will be able to monitor to see, is your baby growing well? Is your baby having the right weight? Is your baby having the right height? Is the nutritional status of your baby okay? So you need to take your child to clinic. So most of you know this. There is a card, there is a clinic book for children. Behind the clinic book, if you have been expectant, you know that book that I'm talking about. Or if you have ever taken a child for clinic, there is a book you are given where they plot the weight of the child behind. There are graphs there. So I extracted a simple graph from that book, and this one is from Kenya Ministry of Health. So if you look at the graph behind the book for the clinic, whether for that book starts with the mother when she's expectant, and then it progresses all through when the baby is born, and so it will be used when the baby goes for the clinic. So behind the book, there are usually graphs which they plot the weight and the heights. There are graphs for girls and there are graphs for boys. So on that graph, for instance, now let's take the graph for weight. This side, it's written weight in kilograms, and this side is written age in months. And now, if you see very clearly, there are different lines I have drawn. But I'm sorry, this one that is dotted black is actually supposed to be yellow. I couldn't just find a yellow mark pen, but it's supposed to be yellow. So it's usually green, yellow, red. Green, yellow, red. So as a parent, take some interest to know when they take the weight of your child, what does that mean? As a mother, as a parent, ask the nutritionist, ask the nurse. Tell the nurse, now today my baby weighs 8 kilograms. What does that mean? Is my baby okay? Is my baby doing fine? Most of us just go, we give the book, they put the weight, and we put in our handbag. We don't know what it means. We don't know what that simply refers in terms of the weight of our children. Be that parent who is ready to understand, who is ready to make follow-ups, to understand the progress of your child as far as growth and monitoring is concerned. So if they plot the weight of your child and it lies within this green space here, where I have written average or normal weight, if they plot any figure for as long as it lies within this space, it means that your child has an average weight or a normal weight. In other words, your child's weight is okay. But if it lies between the green and yellow, I already told you this black is supposed to be yellow. So if it lies between this green and yellow, it means your child is at risk of low weight. And if it lies between this yellow and red, it means your child is having low weight. And if it lies below this red, then it means your child is extremely underweight. So if they plot the weight of your child and you find it in this region, it means your child is underweight. Or in this, between yellow and red, the child has low weight. It means you need to do something. And even if it is here, between the green and yellow, it means the child is at risk. So you can either do something to help the child come in this green space, or if you don't do something, the child will come in this low weight. So I am encouraging every parent who is listening to me there, be that parent who will want to understand the progress of your child as far as weight is concerned, as far as growth and monitoring is concerned. Don't just give the book, it's plotted, and you think the business is closed. Follow up to understand today's weight, what does it imply as far as the health of my child is concerned. You could be seated there relaxing, and yet your child is at risk. You need to be doing something to save this child. You could be seated there relaxed, and maybe your child has low weight. You need to improve something on their diet or on their feeding. So if you see these tables, go check your book. For those who have young children below the age of 5 years, go check the book and be able to see what does the weight of your child means. And for those who had stopped going for the clinic because your child finished immunizations and yet the child is still under the age of 5 years, pick it up, start taking that child to the clinic for growth and monitoring. So this is how you can use it. Simple. It's very simple, because I know some people may not be able to calculate using this formula that I had given previously. Some people will forget what was A referring to, what was, how do I guess. This formula can confuse someone, but if you are taking your child to the clinic, you will simply come and watch the graph. The nutritionist has already plotted, or the nurse has plotted. So for you, it's just to look, where was it? Was it in between here? Then you know what it means. Was it here? Then you know it's at risk. Was it here? It was low weight. Was it here? It is underweight. Then you take the necessary actions. I'm speaking this because I know there are mothers who have not gone to school, and they may not be able to do those calculations in the formula, but you can be able to interpret based on the graph that is behind the clinic book for your child. But for the adults, I have said take your weight in kilograms over your height in meters squared. What you get is the ratio of your weight relative to your height. If you get any figure below 18.5, in other words, you could get something 16.9, if you get something 17.2, if you get something 18.3, it means you are underweight. And when you are taking these weights, make sure you have minimum clothing. I have had issues when I was in hospital sometime, and a mother comes, but she doesn't want to remove the pampers, she doesn't want to remove the clothes, and you find maybe the child the diaper is wet, but the mother doesn't want to remove. So the weight that we are taking, you make the work of the nutritionist to be so hard, and so the weight may not be so exact. So try to be cooperative. Or an adult, you have a jacket, you have a cape, you have shoes, you have even a handbag. You need to loosen up those things so that you remain with minimum clothing, so that we estimate your weight to closer to the true value as much as possible. And when you are taking the height, please try to stand in a relaxed position. You don't bend, you don't, try to stand in compromising situation. Remove your shoes, stand straight, and take your height. How will you take your height? You can even just improvise on the wall. You stand on the wall like this, very straight. Make sure the butt, the head, and the shoulders, your legs are touching the wall without shoes. And you should look perpendicular. Not perpendicular, you're right to the person who is taking the weight. And then they do the mark here on the wall, and then you take your tape measure, or you take your ruler, and you take that length. That will be your height. So those are the two ways in which we can be able to get our weight and now be able to tell, are we underweight, or are we having normal weight, or are we obese? I already talked about overweight and obesity in the previous presentation, so I'm not going to that. But today I'm dwelling on underweight. And just a disclaimer for parents, if your child is overweight or obesity, it is usually not an issue unless the child has any other medical condition. But usually as the children grow, when the physical activity increases and they just shed off that extra weight, unless there is some other medical issue that needs to be handled. But if your child is okay health-wise, and yet the child is overweight, that should not really be a bother. They will always shed the weight as they grow, unless there is any other health concern that needs to be attended to by a doctor. So I'm dealing with underweight today. How do we deal with underweight? And also I am combining it with poor appetite, because if you have a poor appetite, then it means you're going to take in very little food, and chances are you will have nutrient deficiencies, and you will also end up being underweight. So that's why I have combined these two issues. What are the causes of poor appetite? For example, some could be diseases, like for example HIV/AIDS patients. There are those that appetite could increase, and there are those that the appetite goes down. Others could be due to allergy. Others could be due to a bad environment, an environment that is not appealing for eating. Others could be due to peer influence, like for children, they could just be discouraged from taking meals by others. So peer influence plays a factor. And in other cases, parents become so overbearing with food. You want to force your child to one particular food over and over and over until the child's appetite just gets off. So those are some of the things that could lead to poor appetite. If If you have poor appetite, I've already said you will take in little food, and therefore the body is not getting the required amount of nutrients per day. For example, if you need 48 grams of protein, I'm just giving an example, per day, and you have a poor appetite, you may end up taking very little protein, and so you may get maybe 30 grams instead of 48. In that context, you have compromised the body's requirement for the nutrients, and so there will be deficiencies, and such things may happen. So how can we deal with the poor appetite, and how can we solve the problem of underweight? Number one, I would start by saying this: take small, frequent meals. Instead of having 3 main meals, that is breakfast, lunch, and supper, you can break it into smaller portions and have 6 main meals rather than having 3 main meals. Because people with poor appetite, they don't like it when they are served with a lot of food on a plate at once. They get discouraged. Their appetite is very fragile. So they better see they have taken little, and they will be encouraged to eat the next session. So you divide the meals. Instead of 3 main meals, you break it down to 6 meals, and you take maybe at 7, you take at 11, you take at 1:30, you take at 4, you take at maybe 6, and then you take later at maybe, let's say, 8:30. You break it to 6 smaller meals than 3 main meals, which can be discouraging. Another thing we can deal with is we can be able to take nutrient-dense foods. For example, instead of just taking a plain bread, you can apply peanut butter on it. You can put maybe a sandwich in between. You can make it to be a sandwich, so that instead of just taking a plain bread, it is having, let's say, a piece of an avocado between. That's what you have improved its nutritional value. You have made it nutrient dense. Instead of taking plain porridge, you could add a glass of milk, so that you don't just take the starch or the carbohydrate. You have introduced in a protein, so then your food becomes nutrient dense. Another thing I would say is this: do not skip meals. Most people, and this one I'm talking to people who are working and students, they have a tendency of skipping breakfast. And I want to tell you this for free: breakfast is actually considered as the most important meal of the day. Never ever should you leave your house without taking breakfast. And breakfast is important because it helps the body replenish the nutrients that you have lost after a long period of fast. Let's say you had supper yesterday at 8 in the night, 8 p.m. Now you have been sleeping. The sugar levels or the glucose level have gone down. So the breakfast replenishes those nutrients that you lost or that have reduced due to the long period of fasting. Another reason that why breakfast is important, it is argued by scientists that it stimulates the subsequent metabolism. It stimulates the subsequent appetite or metabolic processes during the day. If you don't take the breakfast well, you could compromise even the lunch, your lunch food, or even your supper. So breakfast is very important. Another thing I would say is take nutritious snacks in between main meals. If you are underweight, if you have a poor appetite, take snacks in between meals. A snack is that small item of food that you eat between main meals. It is not a must, it should be a balanced diet. For the main meals, it must be a balanced diet. When I talk of a balanced diet, it should have a carbohydrate, a protein, it should have fat, should have all those 7 food groups. But when we are talking of a snack, it could just be a single food item. For example, it could be just a glass of yogurt. It could be just a handful of groundnuts. It could be, a slice of avocado. You take in between meals. It helps you to, replace or boost up the nutrients if you didn't have enough during the main meal. Another thing I would want to encourage us on how to deal with the poor appetite and underweight is that start with your favorite foods. If you have a poor appetite and you go direct to a food that is not familiar to you, or it's not new, it's not common to you, you will have what we call food xenophobia. You fear the food because you are not used to it. But if you like some kind of food, start with it first. It will stimulate you, and then you go to the new foods or the uncommon foods. Another thing on how to deal with the poor appetite and underweight as far as dietary intake is concerned is that stimulate a positive food environment. If it's possible to eat in company of people who will encourage you to eat more, then eat together with your family as much as possible. And also avoid distractions in the food environment. Some parents, you have put the cartoons are there on the television and you are forcing your child there to eat. While the child is trying to eat, they are also trying to follow the cartoons on the television. That brings a lot of distraction, and then the child end up losing the appetite, concentrating on other things. And I also want to put a disclaimer on parents. Some parents hold a cane. You want to scare your child that if you don't eat this, I will beat you. That such kind of an environment is not good. Talk to your child. Make meal times fun. Make meal times interesting. Explain to the child, if you eat this one, you will grow fast. If you eat this one, you will not be sick. If you eat this one, your immunity will be strong. If you eat this one, your brains will be very sharp. Speak to the child, encourage the child, but not trying to threaten the child with a cane there that if you don't eat, I am going to give you a few strokes. So the child just eats because of fear and not that they are enjoying the food. Another thing I also want to say about poor appetite or underweight is that take foods that are rich in zinc and vitamin B1. Zinc and vitamin B1 are actually, zinc is a mineral and vitamin B1, of course, is a vitamin. They help to stimulate the appetite, and they can be found in a variety of food. They can be found in nuts, like in zinc. They can be found in sunflower seeds. They can be found in pumpkin seeds. They can be found in legumes like beans, green grams. They can be found in poultry. What I'm saying, the bottom line here is that make your food diverse. Make your food come from different sources. Even if it's vegetable, don't just eat kales every day. Today you could eat kales, another day you could eat spinach, another day you could eat, black nightshade, another day you could, even though they are vegetables, but you are diversifying the sources. If you are taking, let's say, legumes, you don't just eat beans every day. Today you could eat beans, tomorrow green grams, the other day lentils, so that what is lacking in this in terms of nutrients can be supplemented from the other food items. So try to diversify your food. Even if when it comes to animal products, let it not just be eggs every day. You can have an egg. Next time you have a glass of milk. Next time you can have a piece of chicken. Such things. You are diversifying your sources of nutrients. That is what helps to boost the immunity. Not to boost the immunity. That's what helps to diversify the sources of nutrients, and then you get a lot. Another thing I would want to say is this. For the food to look good or appealing, you need to use some organic spices, or you need to garnish it. Like you can use things like turmeric, you can use things like green capsicum, you can use coriander leaves. Instead of serving your child just with white rice, you could try to garnish it with some coriander leaves. You could try to make it more appealing to stimulate the child's appetite, so that the child will eat a lot, or the child will eat adequately, because they find the food looking good, they find the food interesting, and so they want to eat more and more and more. That is what I have for today. I want to encourage us to develop a positive attitude, make the food environment good, encouraging to eat, make sure your food is coming from diverse sources, break your food into several portions, and eat 6 meals rather than 3 bigger portions. You can eat 6 smaller portions. Make your food nutrient dense. Instead of that plain porridge or that plain bread, add something into it to improve its nutritional value. Try to make the environment stimulating, and also it's argued that a little bit of exercise before meal stimulates the appetite. You can even just jog or run or just do some moves, a few here and there. It stimulates the appetite. So if you are having a problem with underweight, you're having a problem of poor appetite, I hope you find this video educative. And if you have any other question, do not hesitate to comment, to write a question on my inbox, on my email address provided, so that we can be able to continue learning one issue after the other to improve our dietary intake for promoting healthy living. Thank you for your time. Shalom.